What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. We continue to preview the 2021 schedules and also project each team's record based on that schedule. The Wisconsin Badgers are up next, and if you're a Wisconsin fan, be sure to subscribe to our Wisconsin channel. We are just getting started with some of these team channels, so you're not going to see much content there, but as the channels grow, you will see more and more content on those channels, so help us to build it up. If you're a Wisconsin fan, you'll see it pop up here on your screen, and you can just click that, go to the channel, and subscribe to help us out. The 2020 schedule for Wisconsin was really just a mess when you look at all the cancellations. Of course, COVID playing a big factor, especially in the Big Ten last season. They didn't get to play Nebraska, they didn't get to play Purdue, and they also did not get to play Minnesota. Now, they did play in their bowl game, so that was an additional game for them, and wound up, because of that win, getting them to a winning record as they finished the season off at 4-3. This is the schedule for 2021. Before we go game by game, let's first look at who they play outside of their division, because of course we know they're going to play every team in the Big Ten West. Outside of the division, they'll play Eastern Michigan in the non-conference, a team that has been, pretty good in the past at the Group of 5 level, but I don't think that's going to be too big of a challenge. Then you also have Notre Dame. They'll play that game in Chicago, I believe at Soldier Field. That'll be a really big game. Looking forward to that one. And then they'll have Army, a tough non-conference matchup there. Army always is a tough team to beat. That's probably going to be a pretty low-scoring game if I had to guess. I think both teams are probably going to want to run the football, and I think you see a lot of long drives in that game. And then out of the Big Ten East, the teams that they'll play across the division, they'll play Penn State and Michigan, both at home. So you're playing two of the better teams, although Michigan wasn't very good. Really, both teams were not very good last year. So you're playing still normally two of the better teams out of the East, but you get them both at home, so that's the good news. And then they'll have Rutgers on the road. Rutgers is a program that is starting to come up with Greg Schiano. They looked much better last year, so that may not be an easy win there. So let's go back to the schedule, and we'll go game by game, starting with the opener on September 4th against Penn State. Talk about a way to start the season off. That's going to be a huge game. I mean, you're talking about two of the better teams, I think, next year in the Big Ten. They will go at it right out of the gate, week 1 conference game. Looking forward to seeing what happens in that game. Again, I think that is going to be an exciting matchup, and it's to me kind of weird to see Big Ten conference games in week 1. I know they've started to do that, but you're going to be thrown in the fire right away. Big game there. Then Eastern Michigan on September 11th. That'll be maybe their easiest game of the season. And again, we're talking about a Group of 5 team that's not bad. And so they'll play them and then get ready for Notre Dame. Now, they have a bye week very early in the season this year. They will have their bye week between Eastern Michigan and Notre Dame. So once you get to Notre Dame, it's 10 straight weeks of football. They will have no bye weeks after that. But after playing a tough Penn State team and then Eastern Michigan, you might need a bye week before playing Notre Dame. I think that is maybe their biggest game of the year. Well, I wouldn't say it's the biggest game of the year just because it's not in the conference. It's not going to affect whether or not they go to the Big Ten Championship. But if this team's going to do something big, if they're going to potentially make a run at the college football playoff, if they're going to be that level of a team, then this is their biggest game, because this is probably the toughest opponent that they'll play. They don't play Ohio State in the Big Ten, so Notre Dame going to be a big game there in Chicago. Then they'll go right back to Michigan. I mean, this schedule does not start off easy. You got Michigan on October the 2nd. Then they'll play Illinois on the road October 9th. That might be their easiest Big Ten conference game. And then Army on October 16th. So it's kind of a weird schedule playing. Normally the Big Ten teams play their non-conference games pretty much the first 3 weeks or 3 of the first 4 weeks. But they're going to have a non-conference game there in mid-October against Army. And that's going to be, again, a pretty tough matchup. Purdue comes on October 23rd. That game will be on the road against a Purdue team that is competitive. I mean, you're not going to just go in there and blow them out. Purdue hasn't had great records the last few years, but they've been pretty competitive in their games. And so I think that is going to be a pretty big test for Wisconsin. I don't think that's a game where you just go in there and show up and win. I know last year, well, they didn't play Purdue last year, so who knows what would have happened. But they'll play Purdue again on October the 23rd. And I realize the Michigan game says September 2nd. It should say October 2nd, just a typo on my part. Then you've got Iowa coming up next, November 30th. When we're talking about the biggest game in the conference, the biggest game that will more than likely have the biggest impact on the Big Ten West, then it's this game. So if this is not a playoff team, and I don't really know that they will be, but if this is a team that's just maybe trying, have a chance to get to the Big Ten championship game, then this was probably their biggest game. The Notre Dame game really won't matter. This Iowa game, though, will matter, and I think these are probably the top two teams in that division. They get them at home. That's good news, but that's going to be a big game there. Rutgers on November 6th on the road. Then Northwestern on November 13th. Nebraska, November 20th. You get those two games back-to-back at home. And then Minnesota to close it out November 27th on the road. This is a tough schedule. Now, I know you're going to say, well, this schedule is not that tough. They don't play any really top 10 teams. Notre Dame might be a top 10 team. But there are just no easy games on this schedule. I mean, every opponent that they play is going to be able to play with Wisconsin. I don't think Wisconsin is going to blow out many teams unless they turn out to just be a really good team, a top 10 elite type team, which they might be, but just there's a potential for so many losses here. Penn State, Michigan, talk about Army, a sneaky game there. Of course, Notre Dame, Purdue on the road, Iowa, Rutgers going to be a tricky game. Northwestern just won this division. Nebraska's got talent. We'll see if they put it together. And then Minnesota on the road. I mean, it's just week in and week out, and because their bye week comes before Notre Dame, there's just no break. And even, if you go past the Illinois game, who might be, Illinois might be an easy win in the Big Ten this year, there's really no break at all from Army to Minnesota. So this schedule is not on paper the toughest schedule when you talk about top 10 opponents, having to play really, really hard games. But it's a tough schedule just because of the grind and the fact that they will play quality teams week in and week out. They don't have any too tough back-to-backs, I don't think. Notre Dame, Michigan, probably their toughest back-to-back. They don't have any back-to-back road games. So there are some things that set up well for Wisconsin. But again, it's just going to be a test each week. And if they will have to play at a high level, play consistently all year long, if they are going to have success in 2021. We've previewed the 2021 schedule for Wisconsin. Now we're going to give you a projected record based on that schedule and just based on how tough that schedule is. And again, this is the schedule. 4-3 last season. We'll see if their projection comes out higher. Of course, again, last year was a mess. They didn't get to play 3 games. 3 games were canceled. They did play a bowl game, and without that bowl game, this team would have been 3-3 last year. But when we do this projection, I want to make it clear that this is not an official prediction. This is simply a projection based on the schedule and just kind of grouping teams together based off of how they finished last year, what they have coming back, and maybe even looking at the head-to-head matchups last season. Wisconsin is a team that started the year off really strong. They looked great in their first game. Then they had a couple of games canceled, looked pretty good in their fourth game. I think they were 2-0. And then it just went downhill. And I think COVID was a big part of that. They had a lot of guys miss games because of that. They had some injuries. The wide receiver group just was decimated by the end of the year. So again, with Wisconsin, you have to look at this team when they were full strength when you project ahead to 2021. This is a scale that we will use. If it's a 50-50 game, we're going to leave it in white. That's a game that I could really see going either way. The spread, I don't think, will be more than 3 or 4 points. If you got your games less than 10%, those will be in red, 10 to 25% in orange, 26 to 40 in yellow, 60 to 74 in purple, 75 to 90 in blue, and if it's more than 90%, that will be in green. Do we have any green games for Wisconsin? We've got one. We've got Eastern Michigan, and that's close to 90%. This is not a 99% type game. I think it's just over the line where we can put this one in the green. Eastern Michigan has had some good years in the past, but I don't think this team this year is going to be one of those teams that really has a chance to win the MAC or anything like that. So Wisconsin should be able to take care of business. They should be able to win this game. Then we go to the blue, and you've got one of those. I think Illinois still, this program has a long ways to go. with Brett Bielema coming in. That's going to be an interesting game playing against his old team in Wisconsin. But I just think that they're at least 1 year away from seeing any significant improvement. So I think the Badgers will be favored by double digits. And that's kind of what we're talking about in these blue games. That's where we think Vegas will favor the team by 10 to 20 points, somewhere in that range. So that's it. That's your only two games that you can say you feel great about. You think, yeah, Wisconsin should be able to win these two games. I feel really confident. The rest of the schedule is pretty difficult when you look at a lot of these opponents. Now, I think Wisconsin's going to be favored in a lot of these games, and that's what we're going to look at next, the purple games. These are games where I think Wisconsin will be favored by about a touchdown, 6, 7, 8 points, somewhere in that range. And I think the majority of the schedule does fall in that range. We're talking about Michigan at home. I think that they will be favored in that game. Just go back to last year, and that's, again, what we kind of do when we do these projections. You know, I might personally think Michigan's going to be much better. Michigan, I may pick them to win this game. But based off of the facts and what happened last year and the returning production and all of that, Wisconsin, I think, should be favored playing at home in this game. Army, I think they'll be favored in this game as well, but we know Army is a tough team to beat, so I think this one is going to be in the purple as well. Purdue playing them on the road. And the thing about this with this schedule, Purdue, Rutgers, Minnesota, if those games were at home, I probably would put them in the blue. But because they're on the road and because I do expect fans to be back in full force next year, or at least have an impact, even if it's not full capacity, I think we're going to see at least 50% capacity. Of course, a lot of things could change between now and then, but when I'm doing these projections, I'm assuming fans are going to have an impact. And so you're talking about playing those three games on the road against teams that, yeah, Wisconsin should be better than Purdue, Rutgers, and Minnesota, but when you're playing on the road like that, that does lower the percentage a little bit, and that puts it in the purple. Those are games where Wisconsin will be favored, but I don't think it's by a ton. And then you got Northwestern and Nebraska. Now, Northwestern, I know they won the division last year, went to the Big Ten championship. They beat Wisconsin by 10 points, but this year it's at home for Wisconsin, and Northwestern lost a lot. When you look at returning production, the advantage does go to Wisconsin, so playing at home, I'm going to favor them there, and then Nebraska, I'm going to favor them against the Cornhuskers as well. But Nebraska is kind of a wild card because they've got talent on the roster. It just hasn't really come together for them, so we'll see what they look like next year. So these are your games, again, where Wisconsin will be favored. Then we've got the games in the white. And yes, I realize that, again, they made a typo there. Michigan will be on October 2nd, not September 2nd. But you've got Penn State, Notre Dame, and Iowa. These are the big games for Wisconsin. If they take care of business and they don't get upset and they win all the games they're supposed to win, these three games are going to determine how their season is going to wind up. You win all three of these games, you could be looking at 12-0. Just going 2-1, I think you have a chance to be in the playoff conversation. You lose a couple of these games, probably not going to happen. And again, that's assuming they take care of business in all those other games, which the odds would tell you all those games in purple, they're not going to win them all just because they're not going to be favored by that much. That many games, you're typically going to lose one or two of those matchups. So Penn State, big game to start the season off. Yes, Wisconsin looked better last year when they were at full strength, but Penn State finished strong, and it's week one. So I think that's a 50-50 game. Notre Dame also, I think, is a 50-50 game. They lost a lot from last year's team, so Wisconsin might have an advantage, at least in returning production. And what's interesting is going to be Jack Cohn in that game, going from Wisconsin to Notre Dame. Very interesting playing against his old team. You have to wonder, when he decided, where he was going to transfer to, you have to wonder, did that play a part? Did he think, well, I'm going to go to a team where I can play my old team, play Wisconsin? I don't know if it had any impact or not, but anyways, that's where he wound up, and that's going to be a big game. And then Iowa is a game that, if a team like Nebraska doesn't emerge, and which is a team that I think has potential, but they just, again, haven't really lived up to that. If they don't emerge, if Northwestern doesn't kind of build off of what they did last year, this Wisconsin-Iowa game is more than likely going to be for the Big Ten West division. Whoever wins that game more than likely will win the division. So that is a huge game on October 30th. And again, it's a game that I think could go either way. So when we give you the projection, what we do is we count the green and the blue as wins. So we give them 2 wins, and then we average the rest out. We'll use 50% for the white, 60% for the purple. And when you average all these games out, the projection for Wisconsin in 2021 is 8-4. 8-4 the projection. Again, We're talking about splitting the 3 50-50 games. That would put them at 1.5 losses there. And then you have all of these games in purple. The odds would say that they're going to lose a couple of these games. So 4 losses for Wisconsin is the projection. I don't see them doing much worse than that. But again, just the way the schedule sets up and the way that they don't have many easy games, that's why that projection is a little bit lower. That's why they're projected to go 8-4. I would love to know your thoughts on this Wisconsin team and what you think their record is going to be. Do you think it'll be higher or lower than 8-4? And give me your projection down in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video.